I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Time flies, doesn't it? I hope you all had a good one, whatever you were doing. What's been going on today? I wanted to start my new year with something other than COVID, but no, wasn't meant to be, because today at 5 o'clock Boris Johnson gave a press conference. Good news if you're in the same camp as me, because there are no further restrictions planned in England. Other people there are not happy about that and think that they should be. Which camp are you in? And Keir Starmer, he's been giving a speech today in Birmingham. He reckons that Labour are the patriotic party. He wants to get into a contract with you, the British people. Did you watch it? What did you think to it? I'll have that coming up. And migrants. Last year, get this, there was a triple increase. The numbers had gone up. I can't even wait to share the volume of them, because you will not believe it. Are we ever going to get on top of people crossing the channel? I've got to say, I'm not so sure. We'll have that and more, but first, let's look at the news headlines.
Michelle, thank you. A very good evening to you. I'm Polly Middlehurst with the very latest news headlines this hour. Well, as you've just been hearing, the Prime Minister has been addressing the nation at the latest COVID briefing. Boris Johnson says over 60% of people in intensive care with COVID are unvaccinated. He's also announced the government will roll out daily COVID testing for over 100,000 critical workers. This comes as daily reported cases of COVID have exceeded 200,000 for the first time. Despite the high number of cases, the Prime Minister has not announced any new restrictions.
Anyone who thinks our battle with COVID is over, I'm afraid, is profoundly wrong. This is a moment for the utmost caution. Together with the Plan B measures that we introduced before Christmas, we have a chance to ride out this Omicron wave without shutting down our country once again. We can keep our schools and our businesses open, and we can find a way to live with this virus.
Boris Johnson speaking within the last hour. Well, as some English schools started the new term today, classes are expected to merge into large groups if staff levels dip too low. Children across England will be required to wear face masks and take a lateral flow test as they start returning to the classroom. The government says it's a priority to keep schools and face-to-face learning going. But Labour's Shadow Education Minister Bridget Phillipson told GB News the government hasn't done enough to prepare for a surge in cases.
Before Christmas, we were saying that the government should use that break to roll out the vaccine to all eligible children. It's been a huge missed opportunity to do that. We also need to see proper ventilation in our schools. Head teachers are being told just to open the windows and put children in coats. I don't think that's good enough. And on testing, we know that many parents have experienced difficulties getting their hands on testing kits, and it's vital that we all test our children to make sure that we're kind of keeping control of the virus.
Well, as you've been hearing, at least 35 migrants attempting to cross the Channel to the UK have been taken to Dover today by the local lifeboat crews. More illegal vessels are also being intercepted by UK Border Force. It follows new figures that show the number of people making the dangerous journey across the English Channel trebled last year. There were more than 28,000 illegal crossings in 2021. GB News Home and Security Editor Mark White says government efforts to tackle the problem have been ineffective.
Secretary has vowed to tackle the Channel migrant crisis in 2022 by going after the people smugglers. But just 4 days into the new year, those organised criminal gangs don't appear to be getting Priti Patel's message, as the first migrants were taken here to Dover Harbour. 35 landed here by the Dover lifeboat just after 10:30 this morning. Border Force vessels are also involved in intercepting a number of other small boats.
Mark White. Well, Sir Keir Starmer has insisted Labour is a patriotic party and said if voted into government, he'd write a new chapter of its history. Speaking to local politicians in Birmingham, the Labour leader said he offered a new contract with the British people based on the principles of security, prosperity and respect. He also said his party would create 100,000 new start-up businesses and so-called hubs of excellence. Well, in the United States, the judge ruling over the civil sex lawsuit against the Duke of York has told the court he will make a decision very soon on whether or not to dismiss the case. Virginia Giuffre is suing Prince Andrew for alleged sexual assault when she was a teenager 2 decades ago. The Duke's legal team denies all the allegations. And yesterday, a document was made public revealing the terms of a $500,000 settlement from the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, which was agreed with Miss Giuffre, which prevented her from speaking publicly. Here, the Home Secretary says all historical convictions for consenting gay sex will be pardoned. Priti Patel said more people would have convictions for same-sex sexual activity cleared as she expands the list of former offences in the pardoning scheme. It now includes any former crime involving consenting same-sex adults. Priti Patel says the government aims to right the wrongs of the past. And in the entertainment world, David Bowie's estate has sold his publishing rights in a multi-million-dollar deal. Warner Chappell Music has acquired access to 26 studio albums. The agreement covers hit songs like Let's Dance and Heroes, released during the British artist's 6-decade career. You're up to date. I'm back in an hour. See you then.
Thanks for that, Polly. Well, keeping me company until 7 o'clock tonight is my panel. Joanna Williams, author and journalist. Pamana Assad, who's a Labour councillor, and the political editor of the Sunday People, Nigel Nelson. Good evening, all of you, and Happy New Year to you as well. And you know the drill as well by now on Dewbs & Co. It's not just about us and our thoughts, it's about you and yours. What are you thinking about tonight? What are you talking about? Is there anything that you're arguing about in your family homes this evening? I hope not, but if there is, get in touch and let me know what's on your mind. gbviews@gbnews.uk. Or you can tweet me at Michelle Dewbs or at GBNews. Now, our top story, Boris Johnson has just done a COVID press conference where he said that he isn't increasing restrictions in England, but he's of course urged people to make sure they get their boosters and warned that this is a moment for utmost caution and that anyone who thinks the battle with COVID is over is wrong. Let's have a listen to some of the things he was saying.
So please, carry on observing those measures for now. Work from home if you can. Wear face coverings on public transport and in indoor places, and take a test before you go to a high-risk venue or meet those who are elderly or vulnerable. And of course, follow the relevant rules if you live in Scotland or Wales or Northern Ireland. We've identified 100,000 critical workers in areas from food processing to transport to our border force, and from the 10th of January, we'll be rolling out lateral flow testing for all these workers available on every working day.
Thanks for that. Well, joining us is our political editor, Darren McCaffrey. Darren, good evening to you. What else was Boris Johnson saying tonight?
Well, I think there's a few interesting things, Michelle, we could take away from that press conference. First of all, that he thought there was a pretty good chance that the UK, particularly England, would get through this Omicron crisis without any further restrictions being imposed on people in England. Now, that is notable given the fact that clearly we're in the midst of this massive surge in the number of cases, and there are some scientists calling on Boris Johnson even yet to put down further restrictions, though there is a feeling, as Sage had noted before Christmas, that it probably would now be too late, that those restrictions would make an awful lot of difference to hospitalisations. I think additionally, one of the reasons this press conference was called was the take-up of the booster vaccine. While there were record numbers of people being boosted before Christmas, that has somewhat dropped off. And the government and the chief medical and scientific officers concerned that around 9 million adults in the UK have not had a booster dose, and they're urging them to come forward. That's because we are seeing still hospitalisations increase in London, but more notably in different parts of the country, in the northeast and the northwest in particular, and up to 9 NHS trusts, Michelle, over the last couple of days, including today, suggesting that they're now at a critical state. In the end, though, they do not expect the NHS to be completely overwhelmed, though it was interesting that the Prime Minister suggested that there would be points in the days and weeks to come in which particular NHS trusts may be at that point in which they are overwhelmed. Also, on this issue of vaccines, was asked whether we would be seeing the rollout of booster doses every 6 months here in the UK. We know Israel, for example, is looking at a 4th dose. Sir Patrick Vallance seems to suggest that wouldn't be the case, that is more likely that this might turn into an annual jab, maybe only for the most vulnerable, but that we would probably not be going down the route of, as I say, more specifically Israel, but other countries in providing boosters every couple or every 6 months or so. The overall, I think, take from this is that the government's concern about the slowdown in the uptake of the booster programme, but also still monitoring those hospital numbers. Prime Minister wouldn't rule out, of course, that further restrictions could take place, but in the end, he seems pretty comfortable with what his critics would argue was a gamble to see us through this latest crisis. But the expectation is that hospitalisations will continue to increase for many weeks to come.
OK, Darren McCaffrey, thanks for that. Joanna Williams. Oh, by the way, I almost forgot. How could I forget such an important milestone? GB News is now live on the radio. How exciting. I think we are one of the first primary broadcasters to be doing that. So if you are indeed listening on your radio, then good evening to you as well at home. Joanna Williams, before, just hold that thought, actually. I was just about to get into your thoughts, Joanna, but I just want to talk about some of the numbers because we have all these stats, don't we, flying around absolutely everywhere. Let's try and make some sense of them if we can. Joining us now, we've got Jamie Jenkins, who's the former head of health statistics at the ONS. Good evening to you, Jamie. Can you just help my viewers and my listeners now just understand, get a feel for the COVID story, the picture when it comes to the statistics?
Yeah, so the last 3 or 4 weeks, since around the middle of December, we've started seeing this kind of rapid rise of cases across the country, and it's driven by the Omicron variant, which obviously everybody should be well aware of at the moment. Now, we've seen a 44% case increase in the last 7 days versus the previous 7 days, and they were quite high last week as well. And if you look across the country, it's quite interesting that they've gone up 37% in England. But when you look at Scotland and Wales, Scotland's up 94%. Wales is up 77%, where there's obviously tougher restrictions, and Northern Ireland's up 91%. So it's not quite clear in the data that these different policies are having an effect yet. But remember, they only came in just after Christmas. But I think the important thing really to focus on is cases are probably becoming a less relevant number, apart from the fact that some people are having to self-isolate and they can't go to work. Other than that, we know the Omicron variant is much less deadly, significantly reduces the number of patients going into hospital. But on the hospital stats, Michelle, we are seeing increases at the moment. Now, let me just break those down for the viewers and listeners. They've gone up over the last kind of month or so. They've been kind of flattish, and then they started going up after just around Christmas time. But they're significantly lower than this time last year. But the extra capacity of other people going in for other conditions is what's driving some of the pressure on the NHS as well. But we're finding about 1 in 5 of the increases in patients each day are actually catching it in hospital. And around 15% on top of that are people who've got Omicron and going into hospital, but they're not being treated for it. So the important metric, I think now, Michelle, is the intensive care capacity and how that's been kind of affected by Omicron. And the really interesting stuff is that we're not seeing any change at all, really, over the last week or so in the number of patients with Omicron or with COVID in intensive care, which is quite reassuring because it kind of reaffirms what people are saying, that this is a less deadly variant. So we're going to see more patience with it. Because remember, if 100% of the population caught Omicron, everybody in hospital would have Omicron, but they're not necessarily in there because of it.
Joanna Williams, over to you, your thoughts.
Well, we've seen new measures have been introduced in the UK today, well, in England today, for children returning to school. Children are being expected to wear masks now. And I think this is actually quite contradictory, given what a good news story I think we're experiencing with Omicron. We're not seeing the huge rises in hospitalisations or deaths that we were being told to expect at this stage. It was just a couple of weeks ago we were being told that without further measures being introduced in England, we could expect cases to be at 2 million a day, and we could expect, and I quote, best case scenario, 3,000 deaths per day. And this was what we were being told by Neil Ferguson and by the modellers. Now, thank goodness that hasn't come to pass. I'm really, really pleased that this hasn't come to pass. But I think it means that, you know, we need to celebrate, in a way, the success. Obviously, the NHS is under a lot of pressure. Hospitals are under a lot of pressure. But we didn't need to be heading for more restrictions. And there were plenty of people really chomping at the bit for us to be put into a lockdown or to have far more severe restrictions in place. You know, I think we need to be very sceptical about what all the modellers are telling us when, like I say, their predictions were best case scenario 3,000 deaths a day. We're far from that.
Yeah, Nigel Nelson, you know, there's a lot of people now, people like me, I'm quite happy that there are no further restrictions. I would take it a step further, actually, Nigel, I'll be honest. I would not have children wearing masks all day long at school. I think it is appalling, quite frankly, for various different reasons. There's lots of side effects for wearing masks. It's not just as simple as saying, oh, it's only a mask, get on with it. And I think that children, they are overly bearing the weight of COVID, and I think it's very unfair. But which camp are you in? Are you more my camp, where you think it's all going too far, or are you the opposite, where you think that we do need more restrictions?
No, I'm the opposite, because I think that you come down now either on the public health side, which is more restrictions, or you come down on the politician side, which is partly playing politics with his own party, is what Boris Johnson is doing, and protecting the economy. So I tend to go for more restrictions. Now, yeah, there's some good news about this. Omicron doesn't seem to be nearly as bad as the Delta variant, but we still don't know. The rest of the country is lagging about 10 to 14 days behind London. So London, we're talking about 4,000 hospitalisations, 14,000 overall in the country. So there's a big gamble going on with the NHS. Now, it may be Boris Johnson will get away with it in the sense that he's gone against the rest of the UK, Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales. They've imposed restrictions. Much of Europe is...
But in Wales and Scotland, their cases are rising faster than ours.
Well, indeed they are, yeah. I mean,
with those restrictions, by the way.
But I mean, I don't think the restrictions at the moment, because they've only just come in, are actually having an effect yet. We've also gone against the way Europe is going. Now, if the gamble pays off, it'll turn out that Boris Johnson's done the right thing. We won't know that for 2 or 3 weeks.
Pamana. So, I mean, Nigel there is saying that this is Boris Johnson is going against some of the other places. Surely that is the term representative of a true leader. He's not just following the flock. He's having the confidence to actually set his own path. That's leadership.
No, I don't agree that it is leadership, actually. I think that we would have gone into lockdown if the political consequences for Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, wouldn't be so bad. And that's off the back of cheese and winegate and having parties in the last lockdown, which the government shouldn't have been having. And I think the patience from the public has run out. We don't want to go into another lockdown. It's impacting people's mental health. But I think my personal view is, and I've spoken to you about this before, Michelle, is we should have implemented Plan B measures earlier so that we wouldn't have been at this stage. But unfortunately, that did not happen. And I think now the key thing is testing.
But other countries did implement these essentially Plan B, and they are in what I would argue is probably a worse stage than us. We just heard about Wales and Scotland.
I think the thing is about testing. Getting more people tested, so that would also increase how many people are showing up as positive on COVID. The issue for me is that other countries outside of Europe, Canada, for example, yesterday just went into a new lockdown based on their increase of cases too. So I think that there are examples around us I think this is a political gamble. I agree with Nigel. Let's see if it pays off.
But Pimani, you're talking about restrictions and measures as if this is a kind of good thing that we should be aspiring towards, as if you're almost disappointed that we're not implementing these measures and restrictions.
Not at all.
I think we need to bear in mind that every time we implement a measure, even if it is kind of just children wearing masks in school, which I don't think is a trivial or an easy thing at all, I think there's huge consequences to it, but these have economic consequences which can be devastating for people's job prospects. They have social consequences which are devastating for people's interactions, for people's mental health. You know, these measures that we talk about so flippantly now, as if, oh, it's just a little bit of an inconvenience.
But we're in an emergency.
Devastate people's lives.
We are in an emergency at the moment, and so if the NHS gets overwhelmed, and that is the bottom line about all this. It's not about deaths, not about infections. It's about the NHS coping. And if the NHS can't cope, then really it's game over, and that will have a worse effect on the economy in the long run.
You see, I'm not prepared to put my life on hold, I'm afraid, Nigel, to save the NHS. I think the NHS should be there to protect us, not the other way round. We're being asked to essentially stop living to exist if we go into another lockdown
because
in order to protect the NHS.
But we're not, though, because a lockdown hasn't been announced. Only specific restrictions in terms of wearing your mask, keeping distance, getting a lateral flow test.
But
those
you
things
want
have
more
been,
than that.
But I didn't say that. I'm saying that these things should have been implemented earlier so that we wouldn't be in this situation now. And unfortunately, that hasn't happened. In
but
terms
there's
of
no
mask wearing,
evidence
please let me
that
finish.
would have been the
Please
case.
let me finish. In terms of mask wearing in schools, I think schools, as a school governor, I think schools should be allowed to make the decision, specifically teachers. Head teachers are the best place to make this decision about whether children should be wearing masks for 8 hours or 7 hours.
Do you think they should be?
Me?
Yeah.
I think it's a difficult one. It's really hard because I think they should be tested. I think testing will and vaccinating.
But I'm asking you about masks.
Children.
You're a school governor. Do you think children should be masked for 8 hours a day?
I think it's difficult. I don't know because I haven't looked at the data specifically on whether that would actually have an impact and help.
But as a principle,
yes, they should.
As
yes,
a principle,
But
see,
I think it's difficult. Though.
You don't even need to know the wares, the intricacies. Well, I don't. Anyway, I don't need to know the fine hairs of the details. On principle, I am absolutely against children being masked. No way would I allow my child to be masked for 8 hours a day to protect other people. I just wouldn't allow it. I wouldn't allow my son to do that. The same way that I used to take my son to soft play and they used to ask me to wear a mask in the soft play and I used to say absolutely not. I'm not going to restrict my engagement with my son and my son's development. It's just not going to happen. I'm not going to do it. So for me, it's not about the fine out, oh, let me get a spreadsheet and drill down to it and understand. It's about the principle. Should a child be masked for 8 hours a day to protect other people? No. In my view. You say yes, Nigel.
Also to protect themselves.
But they're at very low risk. Protect them from what?
Well, from COVID.
But they're at very low risk of serious harm from COVID. You should surely concede that.
They're at low risk of serious harm, but they would end up being isolated if they caught it.
Because of the rules?
That would then come into your household, and if you were then circulating with elder family members, it would go there as well.
But that would be a family choice.
The idea of masks being a sort of 8-hour thing, I mean, they will get a break. It's not like they'd have to wear them all the time. But for over a year now, the scientists have been arguing school classrooms need to be properly ventilated, and the government have thrown in another 7,000 air filters, which is a mere drop in the ocean for the 25,000 schools that need them. The masking, I think that the kids should be given proper industrial masks, not these flimsy surgical masks. That would give them 95% protection. All of that should have happened over a year ago.
Nigel, when you say children, you present it almost as this binary choice between children wearing masks or being pushed into more periods of isolation, more disruption for their education. When we announced that children from the age of 12 were going to be vaccinated, we were told, get your child vaccinated because this will avoid disruption to their education. Now we're being told, children are not returning to normal at all. Children will have to be masked, children will have to test, children will have to be isolated if they test positive. So it seems to me like we've done the vaccination, but we've still got huge levels of disruption. And now you're saying, industrial masks or continued disruption. We're living in this position where we've got ever-shifting goalposts, and the people who are suffering here are children. They're bearing the brunt. They're being asked to protect adults. I think that's immoral.
Well, there you go. That's strong words there from Joanna, and a complete disagreement from Nigel and Joanna. Which side are you on? Do you think that children should be wearing masks for up to 8 hours a day? Are you on the side with Nigel, who thinks that actually you could maybe even look at some of the types of masks and get them in industrial ones? Well, I mean, well, actually, no, I was about to go back to Nigel, but we don't have time for that. Or are you on the same side as Joanna, which says it's immoral to mask up kids? I'm not on the fence. I think it's absolutely wrong to make children wear masks for 8 hours a day, and I certainly wouldn't allow my child to do so. But get in touch with me and let me know your thoughts. GB Views at gbnews.uk, or tweet me at Michelle Dewbs or at GB News. I'm going to take a quick break now. When we come back, we'll be talking about Labour. Keir Starmer said today that he would restore trust in government if they were to win power. What do you reckon? Is he a Prime Minister in waiting, or is he having a laugh? We'll have that and more. Don't go away.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello again. Things have turned a bit colder, and tomorrow will feel certainly chilly, but with a bit more sunshine and with lighter winds, probably won't feel quite as cold as it did today. Quite quickly tomorrow evening, however, we're going to see a frost returning. Follow the isobars. They point all the way up to the north, which is where our air is coming from. The isobars still pretty close together across the northeast, but a very, very windy day here, and still those winds continue to bring wintry showers across the northeast throughout the night. So there is the potential for snow showers and a continued risk of ice across the northeast, but it could also be icy across parts of Wales and Northern Ireland, with showers coming in here and temperatures dropping close to freezing. Most towns and cities just about staying above zero, but certainly rural areas there will be a frost. But actually for most it'll be a fine, bright, cold start to Wednesday. Still some showers for Northern Ireland and Wales, some snow on the hills, but they should fade away. And the showers also fading from the far northeast. Still a cold wind blowing along these North Sea coasts, but for most the wind's a lot lighter during tomorrow, and with largely sunny skies. Temperatures still a touch below average, but as I said, probably feeling a bit more pleasant than today. Quite quickly though, look at the blue taking hold of the map. This is tomorrow evening. Quite quickly a frost forming, temperatures dropping with those light winds and clear skies. So it's going to be a very cold start to Thursday. Towns and cities likely to be -1, -2. Rural areas -5, -6, maybe -10, where there's snow lying on the mountains of Scotland. Now, it will slowly turn milder across Northern Ireland as wet weather comes in here. Mostly rain, but some snow on the hills. And we'll see that then working into Wales, Northern England, Scotland. Rain at low levels, but some snow on the higher routes here for a time on Thursday. Further south, it'll be all rain as things eventually turn milder, but another cold day across the east, and again turning frosty with the potential for some ice on Thursday night.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Hello there and welcome back to Dewbs and Co. Now, I've been frantically searching through my email box to try and find people that agree with my panel member Nigel Nelson when it comes to getting school children to wear masks for hours and hours a day, and I haven't found anyone. Everyone's getting in contact saying that they agree with me and Joanna Williams that children shouldn't be masked up all day, every day at school. You must be out there. Somebody is out there that agrees with Nigel Nelson. I am sure of it. If you're sitting there and you were cheering when Nigel was saying, yes, children should be wearing masks, in fact, get them better masks, then I want you to take to your telephone or your computer and get in touch and let me know, because you must be there. Nigel surely can't be a lone voice, even though I think he's talking nonsense, by the way. Sorry, Nigel. There must be someone out there that agrees with him. Get in touch, gbviews@gbnews.uk, and let me know. Just as a reminder, for those of you listening to us on the radio tonight, we have Nigel Nelson joining us, Pamana Assad and Joanna Williams. So good evening to you as well that can't see us, but can indeed hear us. Now, let's move on to our next topic, because recent polls have suggested that Labour has a 16-point lead over the Conservatives. Seizing the moment, Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer said that if he was in government, he would restore the trust if he became Prime Minister. I don't know why I smile, but I do. I'm smiling at that one, I've got to be honest. He went on to say about the three values that he sees the Labour Party being all about: security, prosperity and respect. Now, if anyone saw the speech earlier on today, you might have noticed that when he was regurgitating those three values, he forgot one of them, the respect one. Make of that what you will. But let's have a listen to what else he had to say.
So I want to start the new year by making a pledge of straight leadership. Today, I want to introduce my contract with the British people. This will be a solemn agreement about what this country needs and how a good government should conduct itself.
Yeah, now I've got to say, what keen viewers of that might have seen, and if you're listening onto the radio, you won't have seen Keir Starmer. I find it quite interesting. He's going on about how patriotic they feel that the Labour Party is, and he was standing in front of not one, but two Union Jacks as he delivered that speech. Pamana Assad, who's a Labour councillor, your thoughts on this? Are Labour really the patriotic party at the moment?
Yes, we are, and I think that really puts to bed any sort of criticisms that the Labour Party doesn't take the issue seriously.
What does? Him standing in front of two flags?
Well, saying that we're not patriotic. We're not a patriotic party, because those are the criticisms that have been labelled at the Labour Party before.
It's true.
I was really, I don't think so. I was really impressed, actually, by this. I voted for Keir Starmer in the leadership election. And this, to me, was a really good, fresh start for 2022 with a 16-point lead in the polls for us. I think it gives Keir Starmer, the Labour Party, a new sense of confidence that we can actually set out policies and try and win back the trust of people that we lost previously in the last election. This is a story of a son of a factory worker who became a lawyer and now is Labour leader and trying to... I became really hopeful, to be honest, watching that, and he spoke a lot about values. And to me, as a member of the party, as a representative of the party, as a locally elected representative of the party, I think it's great that we're talking about...
But he couldn't even remember the third value. And by the way,
I think he did really well with the press questions. I was really impressed, and I think that hopefully people will now see that Labour's actually changed and that we're offering a new chapter as
Well, before I move on to Nigel Nelson, when you say that Labour Party has changed, shall I tell you what I think? I think when they stand in front of these Union Jacks saying we're so patriotic, Keir Starmer was desperate to overturn the Brexit result, absolutely desperate. And it feels to me that what's happened is that they lost an awful lot of voters because of the Brexit issue, and I get people contacting this show all the time saying that they wouldn't vote for Labour again because of that. So what I get a sense of, Pamana, is that they have tried desperately to overturn Brexit. When they lost the election off the back of that, they realised, oh, actually, that was an issue, so let's just say we're patriotic, let's stand in front of a load of flags and make out that we are to try and get those voters back.
Well, I think that's your opinion, but I don't think that Keir wanted to overturn specifically. I think that election showed us that Brexit is a done deal and we can't go back. And now we just need to make a success, basically.
Nigel Nelson.
Well, I mean, first of all, just because you're a Brexiteer doesn't make you patriotic, or just because you're a Remainer doesn't make you patriotic. And nor is patriotism something that the right has it's just a right issue. So what Keir Starmer was laying out today, and I think perhaps he should have laid it out back at his conference speech 3 months ago, it's a direction of travel. What we didn't get was any detail about how he would do certain things. But I mean, there was some promising stuff there. He talks about a long-term plan for the NHS, in which prevention rather than emergency care would take priority. We need to know how that will work. He talks about an industrial strategy, especially to do with green industries, particularly mentioning hydrogen, for instance. Now, at the moment, we're doing really well. We're building a wind turbine pretty much every day. What we're not doing is storing the stuff that it's going to produce. So you need storage tanks that will work with hydrogen, so that can be converted into electricity. We're not getting them. He was suggesting that that's the way forward. So it's things like that where what we need to have from him is the detail of how he will do it. But yeah, a promising start.
Joanna Williams?
Well, I think the detail is important, Nigel, because I think without the detail, all we've got is performance. And you can stand in front of as many Union Jacks as you like, and you can say the word British, and you can say patriotism as often as you like. But the fact is, in the questions, he was asked, can you name one policy which would demonstrate your patriotism? And I'm afraid he couldn't think of one. He couldn't name one policy that would actually put his patriotism into practice. That would have been a very good opportunity for him to have talked about the migrant crisis in Dover, for example, and Labour's attitude towards borders and perhaps a hard line that they would take in stopping migrants coming. But he didn't take that. You know, it's this performance of patriotism. And I'm afraid the respect thing, to me, one thing I've always thought was that respect is a two-way street. You know, if you expect respect from other people, you should also show respect. And I'm afraid I absolutely agree with Michelle. You know, Starmer did not show respect for the votes of over 24 million UK citizens when he did, I'm afraid, and it's not something I'm prepared to forget or just brush off as, well, that's a done deal, so we won't talk about that anymore. I'm going to talk about it every single day because I actually think it is the most important thing that we've got the leader of the major political party in the UK who was prepared to go all out to overturn the votes of over 24 million UK citizens. I think that's absolutely appalling, and that's a breach of trust. It's a breach of respect. It's a breach of democracy. It shows a fundamental antithesis to democracy.
There you go. Nigel Nelson, you were shaking your head when Joanna Williams was saying some of that stuff. Why?
Well, simply because, I mean, what Keir Starmer says is that Brexit is done, which I agree with him. We must get on with it. I also agree. I'm a Remainer.
He says that now.
Pardon?
He says that now.
Yes, but the idea about going back into Europe, it was never really a goer. There was never a chance of actually reversing the whole thing. So
he wanted to rerun it. He
But I
wanted
think
to rerun the
2019 was just.
referendum.
But this is why I'm saying this is put to bed, this issue, because we lost the 2019 general election based on that, and therefore that issue is now out.
Yeah, that's right. It can't be done.
Yeah, so but it's out of the question now because we lost the general election in 2019 because of this reason, because the Labour Party was saying we need a referendum.
He's never
apologised. I think he has, though. But I think
he hasn't.
He's stated that Brexit is a done issue. We're not going back, and now we need to move forward.
But then, do you understand? Because, I mean, so many people are writing in, Pimana, saying, you know, these are viewers. Gary, for example, has said, Michelle, in my household, Keir Starmer could pay us an extra £500 a week each, and we still wouldn't vote Labour. He says they are too damaged. And I mean, you can see my emails, you can see these things flying in. So many people are actually saying that it was Keir Starmer, in their mind, as the perception here is that Keir Starmer absolutely wanted to overturn the will of the British people. So then when he then stands there and says, I would restore the trust in government and I would be patriotic, etc., a lot of people, they don't believe it. And whilst you say that's a done deal, that was ruled out in 2019, the taste of that has lingered on for a lot of people, Pimana.
Well, I think the issue about patriotism is that, as Keir said in his speech, you know, it's not unpatriotic to criticise things that your country is doing. And if he as a person who represented the Labour Party at that time, criticised a policy of the then government, I don't think that's unpatriotic. It's, as I said, I think that it's been overruled, it's done, and we need to just move on and have a conversation where we make Brexit a success, because at the moment, we're seeing a lot of negative things happen.
Yeah, and I mean, what do you think to what Pimana's saying here? You know, Pimana's basically saying Brexit is a done deal. They lost the 2019 election because of the response and reaction to the Brexit vote by many in the Labour Party. It wasn't just Keir Starmer, let's be clear. But what do you think to that? Is it a done deal, or is that still something that lingers on in your mindset when it comes to who you put your cross alongside? Lots of you are getting in touch. And another key point as well, Charles has contacted us saying, don't forget in his speech today, Keir Starmer also backed Tony Blair for a knighthood. For you, lots of you getting in touch about Sir Keir taking the knee. Lots of you still remember that and didn't respect his position on that. So I'm really quite interested in some of your responses. Do get in touch and tell me, if you're a former Labour voter, would you vote Labour again in the next election? GBviews at gbnews.uk. And this contract with the British people, what do you think to that? Anyway, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking about the figures of people crossing the English Channel. They more than trebled last year to a record high of, get this, over 28,000 people. We'll have that and more coming up after the break. Don't go away.
Coming up on Dan Wootton tonight, is there any hope of saving Brits from a cost of living crisis? Tory MP Craig McKinlay, who's piling the pressure on Boris, will sit down with me. Plus, GB News stars Nigel Farage and Darren Grimes will be sounding off on issues that matter to you. I'll also crown a new Greatest Britain and Union Jackass and break down the day's top headlines with my superstar panel. The Conservative commentator Calvin Robinson, the Daily Star columnist Dawn Neeson, and the author and journalist Rebecca Reid. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Hello there, welcome back to Dewbs and Kerr. Now, you guys have been getting in touch. Let me know your thoughts on the stories that were covered so far. Carly, actually, I think it is, says that Keir Starmer did not respect the decision of the British people. He disrespected it. Your panellists might say that Brexit is done, but if he'd gotten his way, the will of the British people would not have been respected. Victoria has got in touch and said, my family and I have always been Labour voters in the past, been Northern and working class. However, never in a million years would we vote for this Labour Party. And David Webber says, we will never vote for the Labour Party again because they are out of touch with reality. Someone else, and I must say I've forgotten your name because I've got lots of emails coming in since, but sense as well is that you don't feel that the Labour Party represents the working man anymore. Interesting. Anyway, let's move on to a different story. Recent figures have shown that the number of migrants crossing the English Channel last year would treble the number of the previous year. The government has said that it's reforming its approach and introducing tougher asylum rules. Refugee charities say that the dangerous and callous government policies will lead to more arrivals and drownings. Joining us now from Dover in Kent is our Home and Security Editor, Mark White. Good evening. Mark, we're just 4 days into the new year and apparently we're hearing that small boats are coming again.
Yes, they are, and it really is an indication, I think, of what we are in store, what we have in store in the year ahead, which is very significant migrant activity, small boat activity out there in the English Channel, because really today we had a weather window of only a few hours where it was just about suitable to push these small boats out from the beaches of northwestern France into the English Channel. And by afternoon, that weather was closing in again as the last of those migrants were being picked up. Now, we counted 71 migrants that were taken to Dover, intercepted in a number of small boats. We don't know exactly how many as yet, as the Home Office haven't confirmed that, but the lifeboat from Dover was the first in this morning at 10:30, and that was followed in the afternoon by the Border Force vessel Hurricane with another 36 on board, the lifeboat carrying 35. So as I say, we counted 71 who had come ashore. And then the weather closed in. Now, there was squalid squalls of rain and high winds, and the temperature has dipped very significantly now down here on the coast. So anybody out there in the Channel this evening would be in some serious trouble. We don't think that any boats are out there at the moment, but you just never know with the people traffickers.
Yeah, and what is the government's plan on this, Mark?
Well, in terms of the plans that the government have, it's part of the Borders and Immigration Bill that is soon to become law. And as part of that, they are looking at, for instance, a maximum life imprisonment for people smugglers. Is that going to put them off? I don't think so at all, because it's far too lucrative a trade. Just like drug dealers aren't put off from very significant jail terms if they are caught with very big hauls of drugs, because it's very lucrative. Well, just like that, the Channel migrant issue in terms of the organised criminal gangs is netting them millions of euros each week. It's so lucrative. And the other issue, of course, as well, is whether the people, smugglers, the people that are being smuggled, the migrants, are going to be put off by being told that they go to the back of the queue for asylum applications. Well, it's not going to put them off, because they're still here. They're not being sent back to France or wherever. They just join a longer process in terms of determining whether they get asylum or not. It's not as if that is being taken away from them, Michelle.
Mark White, that's our Home and Security Editor, live for us down in Kent. Thank you for your time. Nigel Nelson. I mean, I just don't think we're ever going to get on top of this, do you?
I don't think we're going to stop it. I think Mark's absolutely right that it will carry on. There's very little you can actually do to stop it. What you can do is discourage it. So the two things I think that they should be doing, or the government should be doing at the moment, One is speeding up asylum claims. So they're too slow. They can take years to actually process. So get them through the system much quicker. And the second thing is to come up with legal routes for migrants to use rather than coming over and drowning in the channel. So the most successful sort of migrant program we've ever actually introduced in this country was when we rescued 20,000 Syrians from the civil war. And they were taken from refugee camps, they were processed there, then they were able to come to this country. It was a much more seamless kind of process. That would mean more refugee camps. You can't expect those in the Middle East, in Turkey, in Jordan, Lebanon, to bear the brunt of this. You need something in Africa to discourage the cross-Mediterranean migrants. But if you were doing it that way, at least you have a route where people could go through, and it might encourage families to gravitate to the camps rather than sit in Calais and hope for a boat.
Well, Pamana, your family, you did originate, didn't you, in Afghanistan?
Yeah, I was born in Afghanistan. I came here as a child refugee, but my family came on an aeroplane, not on a boat. But I would have hoped that whichever way my family would have come, that my family would have been given the same respect and dignity as they were at that time. My view on this is simple. The source of the problem is not in France, it's not in Europe, it's at their home countries. I'll give you Afghanistan as an example. It's currently under the Taliban regime. Women are not allowed to work. Girls are denied an education. The economy is collapsing. There are no jobs. There's no cash. There's no food. People are on the brink of starvation. Naturally, anybody with a family, with children, will want to remove themselves from that situation. And there has been an influx of refugees. I don't call them migrants. I call them refugees because they are fleeing persecution. They're fleeing war. And conflict going into places like Iran and Pakistan. That's just one example from Afghanistan. These people are not going to stop coming on these dinghy boats.
But I do need to interrupt a little bit, though, because I appreciate your sentiment of what you're saying about, of course, anyone would want to get out of a place, as you describe Afghanistan being. But these people are safe. They've gone to France. They're safe.
OK, so the UN Geneva Convention that the UK is actually signed up to, 1951, it doesn't say that you have to claim asylum in the first safe country.
But I'm not talking about legislation. I'm talking about the principle of safety.
But that's the principle. You don't have to. And therefore, refugees are not doing that. And they're getting on these boats and they're coming. I think it's a privilege and we should be honoured that people want to come here and live here because of the system that the UK has in terms of education, in terms of everything, rather than a country like France or Germany. But in terms of numbers, Germany has taken 1 million refugees and other countries in Europe are taking more than we are.
So there you go, Joanna. I need a very brief response on this, if you will. You live in Kent. We should be honoured that these people want to come here, says Pamana.
Well, I think we do need to be far more honest about why people want to come here. And I think a significant proportion of people do want to come here to work. They want to make a better life for themselves. They want to earn money. They often want to earn money to send back home to their families. I actually have a degree of respect for that, but I don't think it does those people any favours at all by pretending that they're all just kind of persecuted refugees. You know, I think we need to be honest. I think we also need to actually have far tougher borders, but because by not having tough borders, we are forcing these desperate people to essentially perform a deadly obstacle course to negotiate their way into this country. And that's in no one's favour, no one's interest whatsoever.
Do you want to very briefly come back on that, very briefly?
Well, I mean, it is as I say. I think that you can't stop it, you can discourage it, and that's what we should be doing.
Yeah, well, there you go. Let me know your thoughts, gbviews@gbnews.uk. Almost time for us to finish, but before we do, you might have noticed we've got a little something on our table here. Why? I mean, I'm going to try and hold this up. This is... Well, I say this is a... What even is this? I call this a scone.
What do you call scone?
What do you call it?
It's a scone.
Yeah, I call it scone. I call that a scone. Yeah, you're in a minority of one. There's nothing new there, though, Joanna Williams. Now, this is a scone, I call this, with cream and cranberry sauce, not jam, cranberry sauce. The reason that we have this is because the internet have been going mad about this, because David Baddiel, he says that when you do a scone, you are supposed to put the cream on first And then the jam, there's his picture. It's gone absolutely viral. It's upset a lot of people. So panel, prepare your scone the way that you normally would, please. I'm intrigued as to how you do it.
Jam first.
Jam,
cream first.
Yes.
I'm cream first. Well, yeah, but it needs to be pointed out that this is not your typical thick, gooey cream.
For anyone that's watching, for anyone that's listening
and could
to
we have clotted cream next time?
Yes.
Exactly.
For anyone that is listening to us on the radio and cannot see, you don't have the privilege of seeing what we're doing with us. Let me tell you, it's evidently a man that's gone and done the shopping for this task because they were dispatched.
Oh no, you're not.
They were dispatched to go and get cream, and they've come back with single runny cream, which is silly because any sensible shopping individual, by which I mean a woman, would have known that it's clotted cream. And yes, I am being stereotypical there, but I don't care. Anyway, that's how you prepare a scone. I don't know what cameraman. That's how you do it. You'd have the cream and then the jam. What have you done? The cream and the jam.
Yeah,
You've done the jam and the cream.
What
have you done?
Do it the Cornish way.
But I'm very relieved to see that. I think, is this strawberry jam?
No, it's not. It's cranberry sauce.
You see, that's the thing that's wrong in all of this.
No, I don't think I could do this.
And
it's not
should
nice.
not have cranberry sauce on scones.
Actually, it's rather delicious. I'm rather enjoying it.
No, we should not.
This is not good for my taste buds.
So for the viewers, for the listeners on the radio, there you go. All of us, apart from Nigel, have done our scones properly. I've just had a bite of mine, cranberry sauce and cream. It doesn't go on a scone, so if you've got it in your cupboard, don't waste your cranberry sauce on a scone. It's not very nice at all. I wouldn't recommend it. Anyway, and I do apologise because I'm talking with my mouth full, something my mum said you should never do. That is all we've got time for this evening. Nigel Nelson, Pamana Assad and Joanna Williams. Sorry, I almost spat my cranberry sauce out. Thank you for your company and thank you at home for yours. I'll be back at the same time tomorrow, 6 o'clock till 7 o'clock. Have yourself a good evening in the meantime.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello again. Things have turned a bit colder and tomorrow will feel certainly chilly, but with a bit more sunshine and with lighter winds, probably won't feel quite as cold as it did today. Quite quickly tomorrow evening, however, we're going to see a frost returning. Follow the isobars. They point all the way up to the north, which is where our air is coming from. The isobars still pretty close together across the northeast, but a very, very windy day here. And still those winds continue to bring wintry showers across the northeast throughout the night. So there is the potential for snow showers and a continued risk of ice across the northeast, but it could also be icy across parts of Wales and Northern Ireland, with showers coming in here and temperatures dropping close to freezing. Most towns and cities just about staying above zero, but certainly rural areas there will be a frost. But actually for most it'll be a fine, bright, cold start to Wednesday. Still some showers for Northern Ireland and Wales, some snow on the hills, but they should fade away. And the showers also fading from the far northeast. Still a cold wind blowing along these North Sea coasts, but for most the wind's a lot lighter during tomorrow, and with largely sunny skies. Temperatures still a touch below average, but as I said, probably feeling a bit more pleasant than today. Quite quickly though, look at the blue taking hold of the map. This is tomorrow evening. Quite quickly a frost forming, temperatures dropping with those light winds and clear skies. So it's going to be a very cold start to Thursday. Towns and cities likely to be -1, -2. Rural areas -5, -6, maybe -10, where there's snow lying on the mountains of Scotland. Now, it will slowly turn milder across Northern Ireland as wet weather comes in here. Mostly rain, but some snow on the hills. And we'll see that then working into Wales, Northern England, Scotland.